I'm Cathy Kitcho, and I'm a member of the Monarch Dunes Media Club. I remember attending a Charter Club open house in January of 2014, and there was Mike Stevens sitting at a table and had a sign that said Monarch Radio. Well, I was intrigued. I didn't know anything about radio, but I thought, well, maybe I have some skills, and it sounded like fun, so I signed up. A group of us started meeting and planning our radio station, and we did some video projects along the way. And in the spring of 2016, we received our license and began broadcasting. As part of our 5th anniversary celebration, we thought it would be fun to do some interviews with the people who started all of this and who keep our station going. And you might hear some inside information about how all this works behind the scenes. So we have quite a team. Let's go meet some of them. So how did you come up with the idea of having a radio station here at Trilogy? I know that you had the open house in January of 2014, and that's where you got people to sign up. So you must have researched it sometime before 2014.
I was doing the setup for the 4th of July, putting speakers out on the street so people could hear the announcements. And I thought, well, maybe an FM transmitter would work, and people could listen on their car stereos. And so I started researching it, and that's when I stumbled on that the FCC had opened a 1-month window for a nonprofit license for FM.
It's called low power. What does low power mean?
100 watts or less, and so we're quite a bit less as opposed to 5,000 watts for commercial stations.
So does that limit the broadcast area?
Very much, yeah, and the quality, and the reach of the signal.
So when you were talking about some of the equipment, you mentioned the emergency broadcast equipment. So that's a requirement regardless of whether you're on the air for an hour or 24 hours a day, right?
It has to be available, hooked up 24/7, so that if a emergency message comes from the president or a state governor or some emergency official, that message can be transmitted on our station if we are on the air.
And what would you say to people who would want to get involved with the Media Club or Monarch Radio going forward?
Go to info@monarchradio.org.
Charlie, I remember attending the very first meeting of the Monarch Dunes Media Club, and I think it was in the wine library, and we sat around the table and we introduced ourselves, and then you said your name, and we all looked at each other and said, "There's our radio announcer." So when you signed up for this whole thing, did you have that in mind, of being a radio announcer?
No, I not when we signed up, no. I had been told previously that I had a distinctive voice. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's positive, but I was told that I had a distinctive voice. And I think even as a kid I thought about, I used to listen to radio all the time. So I thought about, what it would be like to be on the radio announcing songs. How I got involved, I think, was much like the rest of us. I was willing to try anything to help out. And I happen to have a pretty good library of music. But we took from a number of places. We took from the survey that was completed, and we tried to begin building programming around what we thought our targeted area, which really primarily is Trilogy. To satisfy the FCC licensing, we became aware we had to do a certain amount of original programming during the course of a week, which we were all of about a half a dozen people, and we weren't entirely sure how we were going to pull that off. But we had little things going on. You and I conducted a survey of the community to find out, hey, if we launch a radio station, what do you want to hear? And they told us a number of things. And
you also are in charge of managing and our program scheduling. And of course I do that 1 week a month. And can you talk about how you organize that?
If our listening audience members are science buffs and they enjoy listening about different science-related topics, we wanted to find a way where, if that was their primary reason for listening to KTGY, then we wanted them to be able to find us easy. And so Tuesday became our Science Day, in which during the hours of 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., we would ensure that there was appropriate coverage of science. And so certain days took on certain things. Sunday was classical music, and Old Time Radio Recreation Day. Saturdays became jazz music, and we had different themes throughout the week that enabled people to be able to zero in. And certainly we hope that they would listen to the rest of the shows as well. But if they had their favorites, at least they knew when they could catch them. I think 5 years in, we have a little better understanding. We do try hard to reflect the tastes of the community. It is, after all, community radio.
You've been involved with Monarch Dunes Media Club pretty much from the beginning, right? How did you first hear about it?
It really was. I don't know if I'm the only one left besides Mike Stevens, who was there at the very beginning, the very first CCMA meeting, where Mike just stood up and proposed, pretty much out of nowhere, a radio station. It wasn't really the media club. It was just a radio station that he wanted to apply for a license. I think like a lot of people, I sort of went, who listens to radio anymore? But then there was something, a spark of an idea that might be fun.
You've been our vice president and secretary and wearing a whole bunch of other hats this whole time. So
Right.
I just wanted to personally thank you for all the effort you put in above and beyond.
You get back. I cannot express enough the old cliche. You get back way more than you give, just in terms of being a part of something productive. It's been a joy, and I do think this has been exactly the place for me to find interests I didn't know I had.
When we started broadcasting in 2016, we had to produce some shows pretty quickly because one of the rules was we had to have like at least 1 hour of original programming for every 4 hours that we were on the air, and we're only on the air 4 hours, so we were really scrambling. And the two of you came together and started what I call the DJ shows. The music memories were great. So have either of you been DJs in a former life?
Once I was a DJ.
Really?
Yeah, when I was in Belgium, I was a part of the American Club of Brussels, and we had a picnic. And someone commented, well, we don't have any American music to play during the picnic. And so I had to find country and western, pop, R&B. People wanted me to make copies of I found myself becoming a DJ without really wanting to become one.
And what about you, Charles?
When I was in undergraduate school at University of the Pacific, KUOP had their own radio station. And the program director was a friend of mine, and he said, would you do a Sunday night show? So for 1 year, I did a 1 hour show as a college senior. And after that, until Odell and I started doing the DJ dances here in probably '08, I hadn't been before an audience doing any music. And then when Mike came up and said, we're starting this radio station, would you be willing to give us some programming? Odell and I had been doing this for quite a while, and we said, of course, we'll be happy to do it. And we love doing these shows.
Shows that you do together, there's commentary, there's lots of history about the artists. It requires some research to do all of that. So can you talk about how you go about selecting the music and then doing the history and putting all that together?
The selecting of the music is one of the most fun parts to me of what we do. Pre-COVID, Odell and I would go to lunch, and we'll sit over lunch and say, let's talk about what could be some themes or genres that we might want to feature. And followed by another lunch where I come up with a list of songs, hand it to him, he comes up with a list, hand it to me, we go over them, and finally come down to what we consider the best.
And we steal from one another.
Freely, yes. And that's the fun part. Then, because our radio station only has music licenses from 2 performing rights organizations, or pros, ASCAP and BMI, we have to take that list of songs and go on the internet and say, are they covered by ASCAP and BMI or one of the other pros? And if they're covered by another pro, we can't put it on the air. So that takes some time. And then Odell, dives into whatever research he's doing, and I dive into the ones about my songs.
So you're also a member of the Monarch Old Time Radio Players, and you've done mostly a lot of the comedy roles.
Oh, I love it. Love to laugh.
You're currently our treasurer, so
Yes.
you keep an eye on our money, such as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know at the beginning you mentioned being in the Happy video, and that
Yes.
was our big chance to bring some cash in.
Yes.
And of course, we went beyond what was expected. I ended up winning, so that was a big windfall for us for the Treasury, and
It
got
was.
that going. So
Mhm.
since then, what's been our main source of income?
Well, initially, we had to have some support. So a lot of our members, including my husband, would help. That was a lot of our income. But then the live shows happened, and that produced a lot of money. You know, we would charge a minimal, I think, $10. It's been 2 years since we have had a live show, I believe. And then donations. People were so kind.
What would you say to people who are thinking about becoming a member of the Media Club?
Oh, I think we have a great group. Oh my God. The people that are in our area are wonderful. They're experts. You learn so much. We grow. I've grown. I mean, I continue to grow and learn every day. So our radio station supports each and every one of us, whether we're members or outside Nipomo, Santa Maria, Aurora Grande. It's wonderful, and I'm so happy to be part of it.
So I don't remember exactly when the two of you joined the Monarch Dunes Media Club, but that was very good timing because you brought us old-time radio. What made you bring that up as something that we could do?
Yeah, it really wasn't me, okay? It started with Mike Stevens. We did the demise of Dorothy, the 5-minute show, and he brought along some sound effects. He edited and he produced a 5-minute show. And based on that, I said, that's a good idea. Well, you know, we needed content for the radio. So the idea was, well, let's do some more of these. And I do have a background in old-time radio because I'm a fan. We both joined this group down in LA called Spernvac. But we've been going to their shows for, they have a convention once a year, and these great old-time radio actors are there. Well, and they're getting fewer and fewer now.
Really old. Let's say you've selected a script, and so walk us through the process.
Some of the scripts that we've gotten are PDF format, so I paste it into Word, and I have to reformat and cut out all the commercials. And then I do some background research on the series, and I write a blurb, like a paragraph or two about the series, which, you know, I've learned a lot just by writing a little epilogue. Maureen takes the finished script and she casts it, and we put out an email. What we did to start with is we sent out the script and asked people, what role would you like to play? And everyone would say, whatever you want. So, you know, they want to cooperate. And so we stopped then, and Maureen, from then on, Maureen just chose.
Just get the script and cast. And
she just cast it herself, and then we sent out an
he
email
does
to
the rest.
everybody. Then we have a recording session. We do it without sound effects, and we don't rehearse.
Well, that's the story of how all of this started and how we worked together. As for me, I learned a lot. I tend to be a bit of a nerd, so I like the technical behind-the-scenes work. From Howard, Mike, and Charlie, I learned how to do sound editing, sound effects, and to program the radio station. Howard lets me direct some of the OTR sessions, which are really a lot of fun. And I also have 3 of my own shows. I have The Grapevine, I have Writers Among Us, and Wit and Wisdom. So come and join us. You'll have lots of fun, and I guarantee that you don't need any experience. I can attest to that. So with that, I want to say thank you to the whole crew behind Monarch Radio and Monarch Dunes Media Club who keep everything going. And a big thank you to Judy Katz, who is our videographer and producer for this segment. And with that, I will say happy 5th anniversary, Monarch Radio, 107.9 on your FM dial.